Welcome to the Honest to God cast, a podcast dedicated to learning the truth, and the truth shall set you free. I'm your host, Stephen B. Hello, I'm your host, Stephen B. Welcome to the Honest to God cast. I've gotten a lot of phone calls over the last few months. People going, well, Stephen, when are you going to do your next one? I said, well, I need to get my teeth fixed. So I'm at the end of the road on that, got my teeth, and that way I can be in the video feeds and people won't be going, speak, oh toothless one, and all of that. So anyway, just a little bit of background about me is my teenage rebellion was spirituality. I wasn't out there throwing beer cans at the lawn, shouting peace, peace. I did this deep dive into spirituality and a bunch of different aspects of spirituality. Went to my first Kundalini ashram at 13 years old, and I've been meditating that way for 51 years now. I also there was about a decade where I was co-pastor of an independent Pentecostal church called the Spoken Word Tabernacle. I'm calling this episode Dunimis 120, and I'll get into that here in just a moment. But when I had my very first spiritual awakening, I began to see things in numeric values. It was numbers everywhere. It was crazy, and but I didn't know what to call it. I know people call it numerology and other things. I called it theomatics. Theos meaning God, and matics like mathematics, God numbers. And so the proof of the pudding is in the taste, right? And so I picked a random person, happened to be Michael Jackson because of an article that I was reading, and it's in the early 70s. And I crunched the numbers, whatever you want to call it, and applied the values, the theomatic values, and I knew that he was going to be the biggest entertainer on the planet very shortly, and that happened. Also, my wife, the day we found out that she was pregnant, I told her the day and the hour and the to the minute when he would be born, and so that happened. The reason I'm bringing this up right now is because there's a lot of people out there right now that we know something is fixing to happen, something huge. Some people call it the Great Awakening. Some people call it the Truth Movement. Some people call it the Great Reset. I've heard that one recently. And it seems like people want to set a factor on it, using the ideas of like the 100 monkey effect and critical mass and all that, and they're thinking that there's a ratio and a percentage that is going to determine when the Great Awakening goes critical mass and all of humanity consciousness rises and all of that. And I've heard everything from 1/10 to 1% of the population on up to 61%. Some people say, oh, it's got to be 40%, or it's not going to happen. And I've never really shared this, even though I've had this knowledge since the 70s. Dunimis 120. Dunimis is the Greek word where we get it's translated as power. It can also be translated as force, and dunamis is also the root word where we get the word dynamite. So it's explosive, it's energetic, it's powerful, and dynamo is another word that we get from that as well. And So, Dunimis 120, what is that about? Okay, the word dunamis appears in the scripture exactly 120 times. Also, no strange coincidence, its theomatic value is 120. And why is that significant? Well, people are looking for a ratio. People are looking for a percentage of population, and they're stumbling over a fundamental truth. One of the examples that I will give is when at the building of the Temple of Solomon. Um, in Second Chronicles chapter 5, getting down to around the 12th through 14th verse, it tells the story about how they built the temple. And it was time to bring the Ark of the Covenant in, the most powerful artifact on the planet at that time. And they were bringing the Ark of the Covenant so they could take the staves out. This is all symbology, all typology as well. But it says that the Levites, they were the singers, and they had instruments, stringed instruments, harps, bagpipes, all kinds of stuff. But it mentions that with them there was 120 priests sounding with trumpets. And it says that it came to pass that when the trumpeters and the singers were as one, to make one sound to be heard, then something fantastic happened. The glory of the Lord filled the temple. It was like a cloud. I've seen that cloud myself in several times actually in meetings, and it's been photographed. And you can see those photographs in a couple of the other videos that I have here on the Honest to God cast. But why is that significant? Well, number one, it was 120. And we find that same group, I believe it was the same group anyway, of 120 on the day of Pentecost, where it says they were in one mind and one accord. Sound of the trumpet, one sound, one mind, one accord. And so when they reached that point where they were in one accord and in agreement with one another, then tongues of fire appeared, and it says there was a sound of a rushing mighty wind that came through. And of course that, along with what happened in the building of Solomon's temple, so that demonstrates how that when 120 people are in agreement, and I'm not just talking about, we'll give you a thumbs up on Facebook, or, I'm talking about having one mind about a subject. And even Jesus said, I believe it was in Matthew chapter 18, he said, where any two of you on earth agree as touching a thing, it will work, and why would he say such a weird thing like that? Any two of you on earth. Of course they were on earth. Well, it's because when we come here, we come in core groups of 120. And when members of that 120, think of it like a big sheet, a polka dotted one. Where's the center polka dot? Well, you really don't know. But, that's how it all fits in with the word. And they actually say it's a name, but Elohim doesn't mean Trinity. It means plural, like a cluster of grapes. And we come as like a cluster of grapes to this planet in core groups of 120. And if you think this is sounding too preachy or too religious, let me tell you that this phenomenon of critical mass happens because it works. I know a lot of you probably are familiar with World War II, Germany Hitler's connection with the occult and everything, and I think he probably knew this, but he had a group of 120 brown shirts. They were called the brown shirts, and that they were in one mind and one accord. Their ideology was honed to a point that it went critical mass and ended up becoming the Schutzstaffel, probably the greatest army ever. I don't know, but I know it took 6 countries to put him down. So, what is critical mass? Well, critical mass is actually a term for in nuclear physics, actually, and what it is, it's the smallest amount of fissionable material needed to sustain a nuclear chain reaction. So of course that would be perfect for nuclear weapon designs, as horrible as that sounds, but it's also crossed over, and I like this critical mass as a nuclear physics or quantum physics and spirituality, and that's what these people are trying to pin down. When is that going to happen? When is everything going to go critical mass? They also have the 100th monkey, they call it, the 100th monkey effect. And the story goes that there were some primatologists in Japan, and they were researching these macaques, those Japanese snow monkeys, that are actually wreaking havoc, holding whole towns hostages in Japan. I hate to laugh, but it's the truth. You could look it up, but anyway, they love sweet potatoes, but the sweet potatoes being on the beach, they would get sandy and gritty. And one of the monkeys snapped to the fact that, well, I can wash this, and she washed it off in a spring, taught one of her offspring how to do it, and so on, so on, so on. The story goes that when it hit the 100th monkey, and I don't think they actually went 1 monkey, 2 monkey, 3 monkey, up to 100. I think this is a parenthetical number. It fits in with what I'm saying about the 120. And so, anyway, the idea of cleaning the potatoes went critical mass, and it spread out to all the other islands, and without being taught how to do it, all the other monkeys started doing it on their own, and so that illustrates my point. I think if it can work with monkeys and Nazis and Pentecostal groups, this is important, and I felt a sense of an unction actually to get this information out. No, it doesn't have to be 41% of the world population. What you need to do is you need to find your core group of 120, make that your goal, and then get together and then let it become critical mass. And Napoleon Hill, in his book where he talks about the psychology of what goes on in the Pentecostal revival, he uses the term mastermind. It's the mastermind. And so what you do is you create a mastermind with your group of 120. I guarantee you it'll have a huge effect. It's like throwing those rocks out into the pond, and the ripples go out and out and out into the cosmos. Think of sound, frequency, vibration. All of those things are part of the equation. It's part of the program. And so anyway, I just want to be brief. I like the 3 B's: be brief, be brilliant, and be done. So I'm going to wrap this up. And please do some research into other sacred text, and because there's a lot of them out there. It's not just the Bible anymore. We know this now. And so find out where 120 fits in, and you'll know when you meet a person who is part of your core group. The problem is not finding your group. The problem is being in one mind and one accord, because let's face it, we can't even agree on how to make Kool-Aid right now. And when it comes to the Christian folk, they're still arguing and bitching about, is it oneness or Trinity? And as long as that kind of thing is going on, you can never be in one mind and one accord. But I guarantee you that when you do get into one mind and one accord, fantastic things will happen. And so anyway, that's our show for today. If you learned anything, and if this resonates with you, please subscribe. Leave comments below if you wish. And I think it's crucial right now. I mean, the dark side is doing it. The black hats are doing it. They obviously, some of them understand this principle because it seems to be working. With the world going to hell in a handbag, and so let's let some righteous people step up and make one sound. Let that trumpet sound, and in one mind and one accord. And I guarantee you fantastic things are in the works. So anyway, that's the show. I'm your host, Stephen B., and thank you all for your time.